800-363-9995. Our guest this morning, Guy Chartrand, who is the president of Transport 2000 Quebec. We'll be talking, and you'll be talking with Mr. Chartrand right after this brief report.
Via Rail is about to be derailed. A document leaked to the Montreal Gazette says Via employees will soon face massive job cuts. What will you do if you lose your job?
I don't know. I really don't know.
The secret report says by 1993, almost half of all Via workers will be laid off. Prime Minister Mulroney dropped a hint to passengers earlier this year.
Use it or lose it.
The federal transport minister tipped his hand this week.
I think it's time to make a decision.
Neil, this decision could come down at any moment. Bouchard is expected to make the official announcement sometime today. A former Via spokesman who quit the company last week described Via as a sinking ship.
Makes everybody nervous because everybody's going to lose their job and they have houses, children.
Clearly, Bouchard is seen as the villain.
I feel so mad about this guy. I mean, too bad I won't see him, Mr. Bouchard.
As for routes cut, Atlantic Canada is expected to lose 3 trains. Ontario and Quebec will lose several short runs, including Toronto-Havelock and Montreal-Sherbrooke. And Western Canada will lose the Vancouver to Montreal Canadian train.
Well, I guess I'll have to take the bus.
It's a lot of students, too. I mean, I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have the train.
Not surprisingly, the decision was delayed until after the Quebec election. More than 400 Montrealers will lose their jobs. I'm Simon Dingley for McKenty Live. Back to you, Neil.
Thank you, Simon. Well, do you care whether all these trains, including trains affecting Montrealers, are going to be cut in the next half hour? 1-800-363-9995. We'd like to hear from anybody who uses the train. We'd like to hear from people who don't give a damn about the trains. And we'd especially like to hear from people in Montreal whose jobs will be affected by the cuts. I want to welcome Guy Chartrand, president of Transport 2000 Quebec. What are the aims of Transport 2000?
It's a group that the aims are to promote public transit and defend the rights of users of public transit. Right. And of course, we're very concerned what's going on now with the situation at Via Rail.
All right, Guy, tell me, what is your view of what is going on? And what would you like to see happen that is not going to happen?
Well, I think the federal government decided months ago through the Wilson budget and even before the Wilson budget to really put the hacks on Via Rail and really cut the service deeply by half of the service we have now to 2/3 of the service we have now. And I think it's very unfortunate for Canadians throughout the country, especially people living in remote areas, far from major centers, that will lose their train service that is needed for them. For the example, in the Gaspé area, the train is very important for them because they have to travel to Montreal and the bus is not very convenient and the air is very expensive. Now for Montreal, for example, thousands of jobs will be lost, not only at Via Rail, but in all kinds of sectors relating to passenger trains and to central station and head offices of Via Rail.
But Guy, what the government is saying is we can't afford this system anymore. Every time a Canadian gets on a train, on average, I understand that the taxpayers forked out $90.
This is true, but the government, what it doesn't say now is that they are responsible. They are responsible for chaos. They're responsible for the mess. Since 25 years, never the government really invested in the passenger trains. All we saw are abandonments, lines after lines. There was never any major plan or good plan to revive passenger trains in Canada. They created Via Rail in 1977 without proper legislation. They had to take over CN and CP cars that were run down, that were at least at that time, even in 1977, 25 years old, still heated by a steam, very inadequate steam system. We need investment in passenger trains.
All right, now I want to come to that because I want to come to what you feel should be done instead of what is being done. But I want to get to the callers. The lines are blazing. Somebody's out there is interested in passenger trains. Maybe they're interested in freight trains. Brassard, go ahead, please.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Freight trains and passenger trains, it seems to me, can be treated separately.
All right.
Like freight trains seem to have a record of being profitable, passenger trains not so. it would seem to me that once again we're looking at another case of a government not doing a very good job of running a business. Couldn't the passenger side at least be privatized?
Oh, good question. Guy?
Yes, in the present situation, of course, with a deficit of over $600 million a year because of the chaos we just talked, no private company or investors or banks, and name it, will ever put a penny in Via Rail. Now, what could be done in the future is that private companies, and we know Bombardier being one of them, a Quebec company, would be willing to invest in a high-speed train, a complete new high-speed train between Montreal, Ottawa, and Toronto that will not lose money anymore, but that will be profitable. But for this, the government has to have a policy. They have to have to show commitments for passenger train, and according to Via Rail earlier this year, that we got a copy that was never made public by the government, is that the private sector, yes, is willing to invest in the passenger train, a high-speed train, but on the condition that the government show an interest and pay maybe up to a third of the investment of capital.
And we'll come back to that and what the government should be doing right after this short break. Welcome back to McKenty Live, talking about the cuts that are going to be announced in the train service in Canada within a matter of minutes by the Transport Minister, Benoit Bouchard. Your calls, 1-800-363-9995, lines blazing. Montreal, go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. McKenty.
Good morning, sir.
I'd like to tell you certain things there. The Via Rail, the train stations and everything hasn't been promoted enough by the government. This is a big problem here in Montreal and in Canada, and that's one part. And the government has been telling everybody we're going to be creating employment and all that. And I'm going to tell you something. The people that have been working for 25 years as a railroad worker can't work on a computer if he's 45, 46, or 50 years old. What is he going to do? Like my father, he's going to be losing his job now.
Okay,
what's going to be happening with him?
Okay, sir, you've made some very interesting points. The government, as I remember, in previous election campaigns, promised to revitalize Via Rail. Now, this man says they haven't promoted it at all. What have they done?
Not only they promised, but they the Tories put back some of the service that the Liberal cut in 1981. Yeah. So here's come a Tories government that was elected in 1984 on a promise that they will put back trains, that they will put Via Rail on the track. Well, they did not do that, of course. They put back some of the trains, and now they let the situation go bad to worst, and now people are losing their job across the country. And I can tell you, I talked yesterday to the station agent in Lac-Mégantic, a tiny, small station in Lac-Mégantic, far from Montreal. Well, this guy is desperate because he's going to lose his job. He's on a contract with Via. He has no employment insurance, and he's going to go on welfare. And I think Canadians, in general, deserve better than that. I think Via Rail should be promoted better. You're right when they say that the government never did this job, and I agree with you 100%.
Okay, we're going to another caller from Montreal. Go ahead, please. You're on with Guy Chartrand. Montreal, line 5.
Yes, good morning, Neil.
Morning.
The first thing I think about when I see this problem with Via Rail is Mulroney. The first thing I think of is use it or lose it.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody told him that, how would he feel about this job? I mean, there's thousands of people, a lot of people losing their jobs over this. And I don't think this guy really cares. Couldn't care less.
Guy?
Yeah?
This gentleman is saying the government is simply not, has no commitment whatever.
No commitment whatever. And Mr. Mulroney, Mr. Bouchard, Mr. Wilson, I think this trio of people really did not give what they promised in the first place. Again, they promised to revitalize Via Rail back in 1985. They presented a bill at the House of Commons so there would be a Via Rail hack. That's back in 1986. And since then, nothing happened. And now we're learning just in April, end of April, in the famous Wilson budget that 2/3 of the budget will be cut. I think this is a very wrong decision.
Now, what would you like to see the government do?
I would like the government to really commit itself to Via Rail, to create Via Rail on a solid foot by where they can have a better contract with the railways. Because we know that last year, Via had to pay CN/CP $105 million in cost of running rights over CN and CP tracks. We would like the government to commit for new cars. Do you know that 90% of the fleet of Via Rail is dating from 1945 to 1955. Would you ask Air Canada to fly with DC-3s? Well, that's what the government is forcing Via now to run with trains that are dating from the area of the DC-3s. So the government is wrong from day one, and we would like the government to really, new legislation, new cars, better entente between the Via, CN, and CP, give a chance to Via. For example, the Central Station in Montreal is still owned by CN. It should be owned by Via because CN got out of the passenger business in 1977.
Okay, we'll come back to that, but we're going to Montreal. Go ahead, please.
Yes, hello. I'm a telephone sales agent at Via Rail.
Oh, so you work for Via Rail?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And I would really love to know where the government comes up with the point saying that nobody is using our train service. Montreal-Toronto is constantly sold out. We have bookings for this weekend already made 2 weeks ago. The train to Vancouver is always sold out. We have a hard time finding place for people. And I would really like to know where the government says that they have taken our train service and said that, you know, there's no passengers on these trains, which it's not true. Second of all, if Bombardier does buy the corridor region, I'd like to say that they would be running between Quebec and Toronto. However, they would only be making stops in Trois-Rivières, not even Montreal. They would stop in Dorval, Kingston perhaps, and Toronto. They have no... it seems that people are saying, okay, Bombardier will buy the corridor. However, nobody is in the know that... nobody's in the know that not all the towns will be serviced here.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. You've made a worker for Via Rail. Comment, Guy? Quick comment?
Yes, a quick comment. I think your listener just raised a very important point. The trains, contrary to what the government say, are not empty. They are full. Most of the routes. Via Rail has 33 routes across the country. And we have all the figures. Montreal, Toronto last year, 1988, Via Rail carried 1,366,000 passengers. That's quite a lot of people. Montreal, Vancouver, the famous Canadian, the train that is on since 103 years now. You can go by train across the country. Well, this train carried 539,000 passengers last year. The Atlantic, the train from Montreal to Sherbrooke, St. John, Moncton, and Halifax, 267,000 passengers last year. Well, you have to reserve sometime a month ahead to get space on these trains. Sometime 3 months ahead to get a space.
What do you expect these people will do if things are cut? What will these people who are taking these big figures,
yes,
these passengers, what are they going to do?
Well, depends where. Between Montreal and Vancouver, we know in summer, for example, that half of the passengers on that trains are tourism from US and Japan and Europe. So these people are coming to Canada like us. We would go to Europe for a trip or to Asia on a trip on the Trans-Siberian or something like that. It's well known around the world, that train. Well, I don't know what these people are going to do. When they stay home, they're going to go somewhere else.
Well, they take the bus?
I don't see anybody really who would take a bus from Montreal to Vancouver to visit Canada. This is a wrecking trip. I mean, it's 80 hours on a bus. Who's going to sit 80 hours in a bus to go across Canada? I don't see that.
Right. And we will be right back with the callers, lines blazing, after this short break. Welcome back to McKenty Live with our guest this morning, Guy Chartrand, president of Transport 2000 Quebec, talking about the slashing of Via Rail. Lines blazing. Saint Laurent, go ahead, please.
Yes, I don't think that Mulroney or Bouchard give one little hoot about the Canadian heritage. And they're picking away at it, until we're going to lose everything. I ride the Transcontinental from here to Vancouver, and it is a beautiful ride. People don't take the plane unless they have to go from point A to point B in a hurry. They don't go to relax and enjoy it. Yeah. While I was working, I used to go to Halifax once a month, and I could count on the train when I had to get back to work of running that day. Now that I'm retired, it wouldn't make that much difference, but I think it's a crime that they're cutting out everything that belongs to Canadian. You go to the States, they've even advertised in the Gazette this weekend that they're putting on a new luxury train to take people who are tourists that would like to see certain parts of the country. It's going to be modeled after the Orient Express. You go to BC and they have the train from Vancouver to Squamish that's the old steam engine. Tourists flock to that. Sometimes you have to wait a week
Ma'am,
to get passengers.
Ma'am, thank you for a very informative call indeed. And we're going to Verdun. Go ahead, please.
I'd like to thank Mr. Chartrand for standing up and being accountable for the people in this country. And also I'd like to ask Mr. Chartrand, why is it that the Prime Minister of Canada seems to always be against the people of this country? He's trying to divide us apart and trying to doing away with the trains and doing away with this and that.
I guess, Guy, that the Prime Minister might reply for his government that the deficit has to be cut, and this is one of the ways that he's cutting the deficit.
Exactly. Mr. Mulroney said all along that he wants to cut the deficit. That's his prime objective. He doesn't care about passenger train. Like this lady said, he doesn't care about the needs of Canadians who like to travel by train. He doesn't care about the heritage of Canada. Because let's not forget that we're going to lose a transcontinental train service, again, that is running since 1886. And let me remind you that some of the provinces, BC, one of them, came in consideration on the provision there will be a passenger train to go to the west. And I know that BC is contemplating that they would go to court against that decision.
Okay. Sept-Îles, we want to take a call, of course, from Sept-Îles. Used to be the Prime Minister's riding. Go ahead, please.
Mr. McKenty.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm from Laval, not Sept-Îles.
All right, go ahead, sir.
Anyway, I think it is sad because I am French-Canadian. I have traveled from Montreal to Vancouver 3-4 times. And I think that the train for a Quebecer, for somebody from the East, is the best way to know the country. I remember taking the train, and once in Winnipeg, the train stopped, and we had a stopover, I think, 3 or 4 hours. So we were allowed to go, you know, off the train, visit the people in Winnipeg, see the town, board the train again, then go further up west, and to see that beautiful country of ours.
Okay, sir, you've made an excellent point. The trains are a part of the fabric of Canadian history. Quick question before I go back to the callers. What are other countries doing? We're saying that we can't afford trains. What is happening in the rest of the world? Are they doing the same thing?
No, we are the only country in the world who are dismantling, and the Western world, who are dismantling our passenger train service. Look at what's going on with Amtrak in U.S., a corporation which is a success story. It's a success story. They turned things around. Back in 1971, it was a terrible chaos, passenger trains in the U.S., but with a commitment from the Congress, commitment from Amtrak management that was very efficient, very marketing-oriented people. They succeeded in having a recovery ratio of 69%. Here in Canada, it's 28%. Their trains are full all of the time in the corridor in the U.S. between Boston and Washington.
And you're saying we're the only country in the Western world that's dismantling our system?
Of course, you go to France, or you to England, to Switzerland, to U.S., to everywhere trains are coming back.
All right. Greenfield Park, go ahead, please.
Morning, Neil.
Morning, sir.
Yes. What I was wondering is, with the Via Rail, with the plans that they're going to be cutting the passenger service and stuff, will the other forms of transportation, like for example, Air Canada or the fares, will they be going up, or are they going to be going down as a competition?
The competition between the bus, like Voyageur or Greyhound in the West, or SMT in New Brunswick, was always a big competition between the bus and the train. There were some wars on the tariffs. Remember that last year, probably. There were hearings on that. And I think, honestly, that without competition, that the bus industry will raise their fare. Anyway, the bus industry is also in problem. Just recently in New Brunswick, 1/3 of the service by a company called SMT, which is the equivalent of Voyageur in New Brunswick, cut 1/3 of their service. And many rural areas of New Brunswick have no more service. Let me tell you that there will be less competition, fewer competition, and the fare will go up.
And higher prices.
Higher prices.
Ottawa, go ahead, please. Maybe it's Mr. Bouchard. No, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Yeah, I'm a retired employee via Rail.
Yes, sir.
And I was approached by Via Rail last year to make service on the train from Ottawa to Toronto and Ottawa to Montreal. which was fantastic. The response was great. In fact, it was so good that I ran out of questionnaires to distribute to customers on the train, the passengers on the train.
Yeah.
Okay, comment, Guy?
Yeah, that's true. I can tell you, especially the Toronto-Ottawa run and the Montreal-Toronto run, many times people show up at the Ottawa station, for example, and the train is there to go to Toronto with 4 cars. Well, there's sometimes 100 people cannot get in the train since there's no more reservation for short distance trips. And the people want to travel by train, but these people are standing in the station, cannot get on the train. There's so much people on the train on some route that the people cannot get on.
Montreal, go ahead, please.
Hi, I'm working for VRA for 8 years. I'm a car cleaner.
Yes.
And I can't believe what's happening. I'm working in a Pointe Saint Charles shopping, and I can't believe what's happening now. A couple of years ago, they put a lot of money to make a big shop, a couple of $1 million, and now finished.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for your call. Comment, Guy.
Oh, yes. The government put $139 million to build that new shop in Pointe Saint Charles. There's now 900 people working there, and it's going to be cut in half.
Right back after this short break. June Colwyn. See you tomorrow at 11.
Thank you.
Neil McKenty's wardrobe provided exclusively by Henry Marks on Drummond Street and Westmount Square. Transportation for McKenty Live provided by Bernard Limousines, 353-5881.